We got another alternate storyline as Sasuke is the MC. So we gotta go back a little bit in time. All right, we got Madara and Hashirama. They still came to the agreement to establish the Hidden Leaf Village. The feudal lords, however, even though Madara or Hashirama snatched the Nine Tails, right, and sealed it inside of his wife, they still decided to go and make Madara the Hokage. He went to the Five Kage Summit, divvied out the other tail beasts, told them if they ever made moves to make one nation tries to take more power for themselves, that there would be wars. And that basically ended up happening. Um, in this first war, Hashirama ended up dying. He fought against a whole bunch of shinobis, like basically 10,000 shinobis to one, and he was tough, but he couldn't outlast that. He lived to see Tsunade though. So that took some time with him, right? Um, Madara left the village though. He left the village in pursuit of other things. He gave the role to his brother, Izuna. He became the second Hokage. Madara was in the shadows working because he saw the Uchiha tablet and he heard about, there was a person who would come and, bring the world, to true peace in the world, not just, the village. He basically wanted to expand, but, he knew that other people wouldn't see it that way. So he left the village. He tried to take the Nine Tails with him when he left. You know, Toby Rama came through. He fought against, you know, the Kinkaku and Ginkaku units. Because after Madara took Mito, she went on a rampage. She ate the Gold and Silver Brothers. They collected the Nine Tails chakra, and they attacked their Kage. This led to the Second Great Ninja War. After this happened, Tobirama died in that confrontation, right? Trying to retrieve Mito Uzumaki. He actually brought it back to the Leaf. He went back to try to, fight against the Gold and Silver Brothers, and he was killed. Then Izuna had to go out there and fight too. He went out to fight. And Madara is just hiding right now. He's in hiding. They don't even know he's still alive. For all they knew, they just knew he left the village and he was gone. He probably died or whatever. Overuse of his eyes and shit. However, Madara laid in wait for his brother after the Gold and Silver Brothers fought him. They defeated each other. They killed each other. Madara swooped in and stole his brother's eyes and continued to live in the shadows. Then Kagame Uchiha became the Hokage. He was the third Hokage for a long time. And soon after that, a third great ninja war happened. And, he was, the Kage for a long time, the Hokage for a long time. By the time of, Naruto's birth, Minato's there, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Orochimaru's about to leave the village because he's, trying to, become an immortal and learn immortality jutsu, but it's forbidden jutsu. Hiruzen was still a sensei, and Hiruzen still tries to stop him. Hiruzen dies during this time, trying to stop Orochimaru from leaving the village. Because he brought back, Hashirama and Tobirama, and, fought against him. And this was before, all that. Then Kagame Uchiha becomes the Hokage, right? Or he makes Fugaku Uchiha the Hokage, the fourth Hokage. That is Sasuke's father, by the way. And Itachi's father. He dies, though, during this incident. So Naruto and Sasuke kind of switch roles now that Sasuke is the MC, right? So we have, Fugaku dying during the Nine Tails attack. Obito was behind that still. He then, retreats. Madara is dead now because he just died of old age, right? We then go into the future, a couple years, like 6 years in the future. And Sasuke is actually being raised by Itachi. However, there's a mutiny. They're like, okay, Kagame is still the Hokage. But he's gonna try to make his son the Hokage, Shisui. The Uchiha like Shisui, but they also don't. They prefer if like Itachi becomes the Hokage actually. And all this is going on. Donzo has his own motives, and he's trying to take Shisui's eyes. He takes one of Shisui's eyes and he gives the other one to Itachi. You know, Shisui dies, and Donzo then finds Kagame and uses Koto Matsukame and orders, Itachi to kill the Uchiha clan. And he asks to leave his brother alive, and he's like, that's fine for now, you know. As long as you eliminate all the people who are trying to, like, usurp me for power and shit, right? And he killed them all. And then he was branded a criminal. You know, Gonzo went in and stole eyes afterwards. Orochimaru do shit. But also, Orochimaru was, out of the village at this time, right? Minato died during this time. This is when Minato died. Minato actually raised Naruto. So Fugaku died fighting against the Nine Tails, and then, oh my god, Minato sealed the Nine Tails inside of his own son, raised him for 6 years. A 6-year-old Naruto was left, alone because his father, left home and never came back. It was because of, goddamn, it was because of Orochimaru killed him. Orochimaru killed him when he was trying to pursue him. He knew Dry was after him, so he was like, I'm gonna help my sensei out. And one thing led to another. He did the same thing he did to Hiruzen. He summoned the other, he summoned Hashirama and Tobirama, who aren't Hokages in the story, right? And they, killed, Minato. Now becomes the point in time where it's, Sasuke. Sasuke then goes to school and all this other shit, and he's like, I want to kill my brother for, killing our clan members, and now I'm the only one left, right? Sasuke is, still on that kind of shit. You know, at first there was a part of him that wanted to bring his brother back, but he also knew that, that shit wasn't cool and other things, and he kind of got, looked down upon by the village, and other things after that. Your brother's a killer, and you're basically like that. You could turn and kill, the Hokage. You might kill the Hokage one day. They're saying all kinds of shit about Sasuke. But Naruto's also, feels abandoned and other things. My father never came back. Why did my father never come back? He never knew what happened to his father. But they ended up on the same team. They go to the Land of Waves with Kakashi. Naruto fights against Haku first. He gets, beat, Zen bones that have poison on him. Naruto was using some Naruto's chakra, but not enough. He, passed the fuck out. Sasuke gets there, beats his ass. Then we get to the tuning exams. Gaara's there. He makes an appearance. They're like, damn, this guy's, on timing. Then we get to, through the tuning exams, the first part. Orochimaru appears in the Forest of Death, and he fights against Sasuke first. He tags Sasuke with the curse mark. Then Naruto fights against Orochimaru, and they're actually the ones having a decent battle. Orochimaru's like, I don't want to fight against the Nine Tails, all out, so I'll seal him away. Then they get to the next part, of the tuning exams. Naruto fights against Orochimaru's spy, beats him down. Then Sasuke fights against Kiba, wins against Kiba easily. They make it to the next rounds of the tuning exams, right? Naruto and Sasuke. We then have him training with Kakashi and Naruto training with Jiraiya. Jiraiya teaches Naruto summoning jutsu. Sasuke fights against Neji. Sasuke fights against Neji and beats Neji high diff. You know, using the Chidori as a finishing blow, and Neji's kind of fucked up after that, right? But we go on to Naruto versus Gaara. During this fight, he knew that the Nine Tails would go crazy, so Orochimaru attacks Kagame Uchiha. They fight. He gets boxed in. Orochimaru eventually, gets the upper hand, but he still finds a way to seal Orochimaru's arms. And then he leaves the village with Kabuto. And Kimimaro is actually with him too as extra support. You know, so they manage to escape. Gaara and Naruto end up fighting. Sasuke has to help him out though. It's basically a combined effort of Naruto and Sasuke to take down Gaara. Itachi comes back to the village, and they're like, "Oh shit! If Sasuke realizes his brother's in the village, he'll try to fight against his brother." You know, Jiraiya and Naruto are looking for the fifth Hokage, being Tsunade. But there's a twist to this, right? So they get on their way, and basically shit plays out the same way. They try to grab Naruto. Sasuke tries to fight against Itachi. They get beat. Jiraiya, scares them off. Then Orochimaru approaches Tsunade. Naruto gets there with, you know, um, Tsunade, and they, bring her into the fold. However, the feudal lord and everybody else is like, we're gonna make Jiraiya the Hokage, and Tsunade was like a part of it the whole time. It was like a secret plan they all had, and they're like, yes, guess what, Jiraiya, you get to be Hokage. And he's like Hokage, but he doesn't want to be Hokage like that. So basically, he leaves Tsunade with all the paperwork while he runs around like Jiraiya usually does, right? And he comes to the village more often because he's the Hokage, but he he leaves her with all that, you know. And he's like, hey, I, gotta, train Naruto and all this other stuff. But during this time, Sasuke's trying to find Orochimaru, and he's like, don't go after Orochimaru, you know. And Sasuke's like, I don't give a fuck what you say, old man. I'm gonna find him. You know, so then I can find Itachi. And then he's like, ooh. Mm-mm-mm. And Jiraiya knew this was going to happen, but he didn't stop it, because he thought on the off chance, maybe he stays in the village, but he don't. Sasuke gets away. The Sasuke retrieval team does the same shit they did before. Everybody fought who they fought in the original, story. But then when it comes time for Naruto and Sasuke to fight, Naruto and Sasuke fight, and Sasuke still wins that. Um, because he has to make it to, Orochimaru, and he does. He makes it to Orochimaru, and then for the next 2 years, he trains under Orochimaru. So when he's training under Orochimaru, Naruto's training with Jiraiya and, Sakura, and they're all in the Hidden League. He's being tracked down by Danzo spies, Ambu Black Ops. They're like, you're the one who is after his brother, but we're going to kill you and, man, harvest your eyes. And he's like, what? Hey man, what the fuck's that about? And he just like for the past 2 years he had encounters with the Ambu, and he's like, God damn, now I have them on my dick. They're trying to hunt my dick from my eyes. And he honed his fucking eyes really fucking good though. Like Sasuke is the best, base manga or not Mangekyu Sharingan, but Sharingan user. Um, and he doesn't kill Orochimaru yet, but he's doing that as Naruto goes to save Gaara. Everything plays out the same way on that end of things. Um, then, Orochimaru and Sasuke, Naruto tries to go after them. At the Tenchi Bridge, Orochimaru fights against Naruto, then escapes. And Sasuke is like, it's getting close to that time, but, Naruto's after me, let me go approach Naruto. All that shit plays out the same way. Naruto's like, dumbfounded by Sasuke being powerful. Then, the next arc happens, we got, Asuma, he died, they wanted to get that get back, team, Asuma, and, Naruto helps out with that. He gets the Rasen Shuriken, and he's, approaching Sasuke's level, but Sasuke gets stronger, right? Because then he has to go fight his brother. He finds Team Heavy, and then he finds Itachi. He fights against Itachi, but this time Itachi is kind of like, he cares about Sasuke, but not as much. So he's actually, trying harder, and Sasuke is, a little more powerful, right? So Sasuke still wins. Obito finds him, and this is where shit gets crazy, right? Jiraiya is the fifth Hokage, right? So Naruto trains on Mount Miyaboku on Jiraiya's orders. He's like, train, because the Akatsuki are after you, and you're gonna need to use hone your own power, Naruto. Harness the Nine Tails power too much when you're like in desperate situations. So you need to learn how to become a sage. He does that. Um, However, Pain comes to the village, and then Jiraiya and Tsunade try to fight against him after he defeats Kakashi. And one thing leads to another, and guess what? Pain, puts belt to ass on, Tsunade and Jiraiya. But then Naruto shows up, and then, Jiraiya sees Naruto, and he's like, damn, you surpassed me. And then he's like, Naruto fights against, Pain. But Pain still kills Jiraiya during that fight, and that's what sends Naruto on the rampage. Naruto fights against Pain, defeats Pain, brings everybody back, you know, except Jiraiya. Jiraiya didn't come back, you know, because he didn't accept it. Like, he was like, I know you're trying to bring me back, but I'd rather just not, because he didn't want to be Hokage no more. So basically, what happens is the war goes on, or before the Fourth Great Ninja War, Danzo assumes command as the Sixth Hokage. Nobody wants Danzo, you know. Sasuke's still out there. Sasuke is told to prepare for Danzo. Obito goes to find the Eight Tails. Obito's in a fight with Eight Tails, but then the whole village gets involved, and he's like, God damn it, I can't catch the Eight Tails right now. But the way that the fight went, it made it seem like Obito still grabbed him. Because they got there late and other things. And the Eight Tails is gone. Killer Bee's just trying to get the fuck outside the village so he can do what he wants, right? And not be caged in by his brother. So after all that shit happens, right? Sasuke's waiting, and then, Obito gets back to him, and he's like, we're going to the Five Kage Summit now. Danzo's on the move. Naruto fights Killer Bee in the woods on his way to try to find Sasuke. He's like, I'm gonna bring Sasuke back to the village. And he's fighting against Killer Bee. Killer Bee fights Naruto, and they both go full Nine-Tails, or Nine-Tails and Eight-Tails, but Naruto don't have control of himself. So Killer Bee ends up winning that bout. Barely. Then, they steal Naruto, but, Yamato gets there and calms him the fuck down. Sasuke fights against Danzo. He gets that get back against Danzo, just like in the anime, right? After that, he's like, Obito's like, you gotta come with me. Kakashi gets there and he starts fighting against Sasuke, because he's like trying to go with Obito, but he's like, Kakashi's like, you should come back to the Leaf, but then he's like, why would you want me to come back to the Leaf after I killed one of the elders, He's like, you didn't want to do that. You allowed him to do that to you. Obito, or not Obito, but Toby. And he's like, sorry, but Sasuke's cloaked in darkness now. Naruto gets there late and tries to fight against Sasuke. They're all like, no. They get out of there. After that happens, the Fourth Great Ninja War starts. Fugaku's brought back with the other Kage, and they fight against Gaara on that battlefield. Madara's saved for later, right? Obito's convinced to, let, Kabuto join in his cause, right? He takes the Jinchuriki and he uses the Six Paths Jutsu on them, puts the chakra rods in them, and now he can control their, dead bodies. Right? After this happens, Naruto trains with Killer Bee and Sasuke wakes up, and it's the war. It's wartime, and during this time, he's like, "Damn!" After finding my, you know, what the fuck's going on? Naruto, gets to the battlefield. You know, he helps out on that battlefield where Fugaku is, and he actually defeats Fugaku. He helps seal him away in the Third Raikage. And with Sasuke, Sasuke actually fights against his brother. See, Sasuke fights against his brother and Nagato. But then, Sasuke gets, out of the, reanimation state. And he helps, turn the tables on Nagato. They had a hard fought battle. But then they leave. Now, what happens is, they get to, Kabuto, and Sasuke and Itachi fight against Kabuto. He's like, we have to stop the reanimation jutsu. Our father was the Hokage. I want you to become the Hokage. Sasuke, I originally wanted to, defeat you and, have the eyes for myself, but you're the one who was the better guy. You beat me that day, so those eyes lie with you. He's talking about the Mangekyo Sharingan. You need to become the next Hokage. No matter what. God damn it. And he left and he did that, right? But before that happened, right? Jiraiya and Minato were brought back so Naruto could fight against them. Naruto fought against both of them and defeated them, but it was a hard fought battle. Highly extreme. And he beat both of them, right? Bringing Orochimaru back from the dead. Sasuke summons Izuna, Kagame, and his own father was summoned again from the battlefield. You know, he's like, what does it mean to be a Hokage and an Uchiha and a person of the land of fire? And they all tell him, and he's like, they hold a knife to Orochimaru's throat, and Orochimaru's like, you know, you'll do what I say, Orochimaru. Orochimaru basically becomes Sasuke's bitch for the rest of the war. We get to the part where 5 Kage fight against Madara. They get beat. You know, Naruto's trying to fight against, Obito. The masks don't break until Sasuke gets there. See, Naruto's fighting against Obito. Sasuke shoots a lightning arrow. No, fireball jutsu into the Kamui world. Right as Naruto's attacking him. And boom! He breaks the mask. And, Naruto looks back and sees Sasuke and he's like, who's behind that mask? That's not Madara. They come to find out it's Obito. All that shit plays out similarly. Except the revived Kages are who now? Izuna, Kagame, and Bugaku. They made sure Jiraiya got brought back too, because, Kabuto got on, his shit and he was like, he revived Jiraiya. And they all started fighting. Madara was like, you guys are not like Hashirama. Brother, why would you fight? He's like, we've died, brother. It's time to let your shit go. Madara's like, no fucking way. I planned on taking over the world a long time ago, and I'm gonna do it, even if I have to beat you. And he's fighting against him, Kagame, Gaku, and Jiraiya. All of them. Naruto and Sasuke team up to fight against Obito. You know, Sasuke gets into Obito's mind through Genjutsu, and he's like, telling him shit. And he's like, you could have been my like mentor. You could have been this. You could have been that. You tried to convince me to turn to your side and crash out. I still want to become the Hokage, but I don't know how the world will perceive me after the Danzo incident. Naruto and Sasuke knocked some sense into Obito, but not enough, right? You No, but I have this for you. No, you don't want that. So after that, Obito then Obito then became, checked out. He was all, you know, after he became the Ten Tails, and then the, Tail Beast left his body. He was a vegetable essentially, but he was still alive, right? So then, Madara does his thing and becomes the Ten Tails, Jinchurikin. However, this is where the story ends, y'all. Like, it's about to end. Sasuke and Naruto get killed by Madara. Might guy goes into the 8 gates, try to fight against, Madara. Didn't work. Hagoromo brings Naruto and Sasuke back to life. Naruto and Sasuke fight against Madara. This time, Madara brings them into an illusion. It's not Tsukuyomi, but it's like another illusion. And he shows them Kaguya. He's like, this is Kaguya Otsutsuki. You'll fight against her. And he's just sitting back watching them fight against her. And it's like, she's really giving them the what for, though, too. And like, Hagoromo shows up and tells them, that shit's not even real. You guys gotta like see through shit like that. And he's coaching he's coaching them through this like battle. Then they like sneak up on, Madara and hit him with the, seals, and they seal Madara away, defeating him, and saving the world. Naruto and Sasuke still fight, but it's for, to see who gets to become Hokage eventually in the future. The sixth Hokage is Tsunade. She just holds that position. Naruto and Sasuke fight. Sasuke ends up winning. He returns to the village and he, works. Naruto remains a genin for the rest of his life. He didn't mind because his father, Minato, just wanted to be a great shinobi, and that's all Naruto wanted to be too. And he was kind of happy for Sasuke, not jealous. Sasuke waited 10 years. Tsunade finally stepped down, and Naruto he was there to see Sasuke become the Hokage. He became the 7th Hokage at age 30. And that ends the story of Sasuke being the MC of Naruto. The alternate storyline, that is Sasuke as the MC. Be cool, call on the corner, and I'll make another video probably